The star stream has detected anomalies from you. I hadn't fought yet, but my body was already showing subtle signs of shrinking. If I received the penalty, then I would be like my other companions in a flash. I deliberately approached them slowly and asked, "Why are you hostile to Koreans?" There was a fight against the Japanese in the original novel, but it hadn't started so early. Besides, I destroyed the Absolute Throne and South Korea's entry into the scenario was slower. That's why this unfolded. Do you have to ask? You were hostile to us first. Are you talking about nationalist sentiment? I don't have any anti-Japanese feelings. You Joseonjings killed us first. I looked at Lee Hyung-sung and asked, "Really?" "No! It's true that we fought to defend the small people, but we didn't kill the Japanese." "You didn't?" The samurai gritted his teeth. "I'm not talking about you. If you're gonna feign ignorance, then stop." Weren't we the first ones to enter? Wait. Somehow I knew why this Japanese incarnation felt like this. The samurai cried out, "Don't make a fuss!" Yes, this was it. The exclusive skills bookmark can now be activated. The number 4 bookmark has been activated. Way of the Wind level 8 has been activated. A gust of wind blew my way. The Japanese screamed as they were pushed back by the wind pressure, and I rescued my party members in this short gap. "Everybody, grab onto me." Lee Hyun-sung and Lee Ji-hee hung onto my shoulders while Lee Gil-young slipped into my pocket with Shin Yu-sung. "This is my spot. You can go to the other pocket." As the children were fighting, I grabbed onto grandmother number 406 with both hands. "Then I'm going." I started running through the forest. There was no need to deal with all the Japanese people here. If I killed anyone, then my plan would be a failure. Hostile acts against a disaster have been detected. You've been given a first scenario penalty. Your body size has reduced. Your total stats have decreased. Due to the magnitude of the battle, the penalty already started. My body size was reduced by approximately 5 centimeters. Fortunately, my coat was decreased along with my body. As expected with the SSS graded item, it changed shape with the user. I wondered how small it could become. "Catch him!" I saw the Japanese people running behind me. Some constellations want to pay back the nation's humiliating history. 2,000 coins have been sponsored. The messages from the Korean constellations rang in my ears. In fact, it wasn't strange for them to be angry. At first glance, some of the Japanese had constellations that would provoke anger. I asked Lee Ji-hee, who was clinging to my shoulder, "Why did you get captured already when your sponsor is Duke of Loyalty and Warfare?" "There isn't any water around here." The Duke of Loyalty and Warfare was useless without water until he got the 2 dragon sword. Lee Hyun-sung would have been penalized for protecting the small children, and Lee Gil-young, he was currently having a conversation with Shin Yu-sung. "You should cherish insects. Don't just kill them. The small people aren't insects. They are as small as insects." Yes, I knew what happened. Sometimes I was afraid that Lee Gil-young would become a psychopath. "He's going in the Prime Minister's direction. Contact the Prime Minister." Thanks to the penalty and the colony effect, the Japanese people were catching up to me despite Way of the Wind. I told Lee Hyun-sung and the others, "There is a person I have to catch before the snake hunt." "You have to catch the Prime Minister." "He is someone who leads the Japanese fighters, and the disasters will pause for a bit after his death." Once the small person transformation began, the gap with the disasters was too big. If I didn't catch the Prime Minister now, then he would be the hardest to deal with later on. Grandmother number 406, who was sitting on my hand, asked me, "Young man, am I heavy?" "It is heavy." The grandmother was heavy. It wasn't because my body size had been reduced. "Do you understand? There is only one chance." The grandmother laughed. Yes. The core of this mission was the grandmother number 406. It might be fortunate that I found the Prime Minister, even if I missed the snake. The Prime Minister was strong, but as long as this grandmother existed, the Prime Minister would surely be killed. Then a man appearing from the bushes in front of us called us. "My sponsor is clamoring. What is the fuss?" The man wore a gold armband and looked like a yakuza. Needless to say, he was the person I was looking for. He was the Prime Minister, Yamamoto. A Joseonjing. The Prime Minister was holding an iron cage with the female person trapped inside. Lee Ji-hee screamed furiously. "This person?" The girl in the cage was probably Asuka Ren of the first group. She was the first person from Japan who refused to be a disaster. Just like not all Koreans were good people, not all Japanese were bad. Good and bad were just determined by the accident according to the circumstances. The Prime Minister asked, "Hey, who are you?" The exclusive skill character list is activated. Character information, name, Yamamoto Hajime. Age, 64 years old. Constellation support, Korean Empire invader. Private attribute, colonialist, hero. Lustful person, hero. Fear of Iran, rare. Anti-Korean, rare. Exclusive skills, hand-to-hand combat level 7, advanced weapons training level 4, Japanese kendo level 8, mental focus level 3, crowd command level 4, stigma, colonization level 7, spirit concentration level 5. Overall stats, physique level 60 plus 10, strength level 60 plus 10, agility level 60 plus 10, magic power level 60 plus 10. Overall evaluation. This is Yamamoto Hajime, who leads one of the 4 major groups in Japan. He can use colonization to exert a powerful influence over people from a particular nation. If you are Korean or Chinese, it is recommended not to confront this person. Why did the colonial slaves come here? Just as there were the 3 kings in South Korea, Japan had this person. Every country had those who lost a sense of what era this is. Yamamoto Hajime's synchro rate has risen due to the scenario buff. Korean Empire invader. The sponsor behind Yamamoto was Ito Hirobumi, the first Prime Minister of Japan. The effect of colonization has made your movements dull. The effect of colonization weakens your mind. Yamamoto's stigma colonization gave a powerful debuff to people who had experienced domination by Japan in history. The mental debuff was offset by the 4th wall, but the constraints on my movements were quite large. I tried to resist capture as I said, "Don't try to pretend to be a great person. Trivial person." Perhaps the Korean Empire invader was trying to accumulate stories in this scenario. However, it wouldn't work. The constellation that longs for the independence of his nation is looking at you. The great independence fighter promises to kill him if you give the constellation 3 bullets. I ran straight towards Yamamoto. I put away Unbroken Faith and pulled out Gamping Yui. "Kill him!" The clever Yamamoto used his men as a meat shield. It was an act that he did because he knew I would become a small person the moment I killed one person. Killing Yamamoto himself wasn't a problem. The problem was that after I killed, the damage I would receive wasn't just the small person transformation. If I killed someone, then I would lose the effect of King of No Killing. Of course, I would give up the King of No Killing situation in this scenario. However, not right now. I couldn't afford to kill the Prime Minister. Thus, I wouldn't be the one fighting here. Gamping Yui's special option, Echo of the Stars, has been activated. Echo of the Stars allows you to ask for help of a constellation. The constellation can refuse your request, and the number of times that Gamping Yui can be used is reduced when the constellation responds to the request. I turn the Earth disk, and the constellations on the sky disk flash brightly. The great constellations hear your voice flowing through the stars. I didn't hesitate to call one constellation. I want the nation's independence activist. In the long history of invasions of the Korean Peninsula, there was a myriad of people who received the title of independence activist. Among them, there was only one person with the modifier of nation's independent activist. It was because all the other constellations of the Korean Peninsula gave her this modifier. The constellation Nation's Independence Activist has responded to your call. A calm and clear energy penetrated my mind, and the constellation's image surfaced. She wore black morning clothes and a white skirt. A girl who was too young to climb to the throne of a constellation. I opened my mouth, but the constellation shook her head. It was as if there was no need to say thank you. I nodded. If Japan had Ito, then South Korea had this constellation. What? Who was the sponsor? The confused Japanese incarnations yelled. However, there were no signs of abnormalities from me, and the Japanese regained their spirit. The stigma Declaration of Independence Level 1 has excluded the energy of colonization. They were unaware that my strike had already begun. The stigma Nonviolence Zone blocks the movement of you and people from certain countries. Suddenly, all the Japanese people in the vicinity froze. My body? If colonization was a stigma exclusively for Koreans, non-violent zone was a stigma exclusively for the Japanese. Once this stigma was used, all Japanese people in the area would be unable to move one step. It would last for 1 minute. Move! Move now! Among the confused Japanese people, only Yamamoto laughed like it was interesting. He was also trapped by my stigma. The power of this constellation. How interesting. My sponsor is going crazy. However, you also can't move. How will you kill me? I smiled. I'm not going to kill you. It was natural. The person who would kill Yamamoto had been decided from the beginning. Grandmother, now! The person sitting on my left hand, prisoner number 406, moved. Like magic, the grandmother's body started to grow rapidly. What is that? In fact, the grandmother had never been affected by the small person transformation. It was because she was a small person from the beginning. It was thanks to the magic that my mother's subordinate, John Wuchi, had placed on her. Don't panic! She's just a grandmother. The Japanese staggered due to the binding force as they tried to stop the grandmother. The grandmother just approached them with a smile. The character, Lee Buk-sung, has activated the skill Elderly Person, level 7. Characters younger than Lee Buk-sung will feel respect for her. Shit, what is this? The Japanese people retreated like they were conceding seats on the subway. Of course, it wasn't intentional. Thanks for letting me pass. In fact, there is no need to make concessions. The character Lee Bok-sung has activated the skill Old Strength level 6. This grandmother is strong. The Japanese people pushed by the grandmother, screamed, and fell down. Their arms were swollen like they would burst. Her appearance had transformed into a muscular body. Lee Hyun-sung gaped over the wonderful muscles. Block her! Block her! Prime Minister Yamamoto realized something was wrong and screamed. I opened my mouth. Grandmother, do it quickly. Lee Bok-sung nodded. It might be a favorable situation, but she would become a small person if she killed even one person. The important thing was killing the target before becoming a small person. The energy of Lee Bok-sung's sponsor emerged. The constellation Nation's Independent Activist and a Harbin Sniper has created an ensemble effect. The Harbin Sniper will gain a 100% hit rate. The Harbin Sniper's bullet damage will increase by 150%. Now Lee Bok-sung looked more like a fighter than an old person, a fighter who dedicated his life for only one purpose. How long have you been sitting in the elderly seats? This isn't the Korean Empire. I tried to get along with the young people, but they should know when to move out of the way. The character Lee Bok-sung has activated the skill 3 Shots level 1. Lee Bok-sung made a gun shape by stretching out her index finger and thumb to a 90-degree angle. Magic power formed at the tip of her index finger. Most incarnations were hardly ever damaged by magic power bullets, except for one person. The Prime Minister was shocked. That ability? Your sponsor is? Stage transformation. The phenomena that occurred when constellations related to each other met was activated. The surrounding scenery distorted, and I seemed to hear the engine of a steam locomotive. It became an old train platform. It was my first time seeing it, but I knew where this place was. The year 1909, Harbin, China. Ah! It was the place where Ito Hirobumi had died. No! Damn it! Stop her! Yamamoto shouted with fright. For stage transformation to occur, the synchronization with the constellation had to be absolute. Specialized damage of 3 shots is applied due to the influence of stage transformation. The bullet's damage will increase by 2,000%. The bullets made to kill only one person burned at Lee Bok-sung's fingertip. The constellation Korean Empire Invader is requesting help from the other constellations of Japan. The constellation Korean Empire Invader is screaming and staring at the incarnation Lee Bok-sung. Prisoner number 406, Lee Bok-sung. The sponsor behind her was the righteous An Jug-young. Translation, person who assassinated Ito Hirobumi. Farewell, Japanese lord. The 3 shots fired, and Yamamoto stared blankly at his chest as he fell backwards.